Hi everyone, welcome to the first Saturday with the Saints. I am so excited to get this started, but today we're not focusing on a saint, we are focusing on the namesake for our school, John Carroll. So let's get started. John Carroll was born on January 8th or the 19th, depending on your source, 1736, south of Baltimore, Maryland, the fourth of 7 children. He went to school at 2 different Jesuit schools, one in 1747 in Maryland and the other starting in 1748 in France. At the French school, the boys would learn and have a grounding in the classics. John first decided to become a planter and then a politician. However, he was called to the priesthood, and so he entered into the Jesuit novitiate on September 8th, 1753, in Wotton, France, and took his first vows 2 years later. After Wotton, he went to the town of Liège to study philosophy and theology at the English College. He was ordained a priest on February 14th, 1761, by the auxiliary bishop of Liège and began to teach philosophy in 1762 at the English College after he finished his own studies. He then began to teach at the Jesuit College in Bruges in 1767. After a year of tertianship, Carroll took his final vows on February 2nd, 1771, and then began a trip around Europe as the chaperone of Charles Philip Stourton, who would later become a baron. Carroll wanted to go to Rome, where the Pope at the time was starting to suppress the Jesuits. The two lodged at the Jesuit College at Nobles in Bologna, where Carroll met his future friend and faithful correspondent, Charles Plowden. By the fall of 1772, he was in Rome under the radar, but the suppression of the Jesuits on June 21st, 1773, made Carroll head home to Maryland from Europe. When he arrived back in Maryland, he lived with his mother, and his brother Daniel built him a chapel for him to serve the Catholics in the neighborhood. In 1776, Carroll was asked by the Continental Congress to accompany a diplomatic mission to Canada with Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Chase, and his cousin Charles Carroll. He went, but was snubbed by the local Canadian clergy, who were ordered to do so by the Bishop of Quebec, and accompanied Franklin back to Philadelphia when he became ill. Carroll sympathized with the revolutionary cause as he believed it would help form the church in the new country. When independence was ratified by treaty in 1783, he wrote to Rome, rejoicing that our religious system has undergone a revolution, if possible, more extraordinary than our political one. It was a blessing and an advantage, which is our duty to preserve and improve with the utmost prudence. At this point in his career, he favored saying the liturgy in the language of the people and also promoted a recognition of papal power as extending to spiritual matters. On June 9, 1784, Carroll was named Superior of the Mission in the 13 United States by the Holy See and at Benjamin Franklin's recommendation. He did not wish to be under the Congregation of the Propaganda Fide, which was charged with missionary territories. So he suggested that the United States should have a diocesan bishop elected by its own clergy. However, after some compromises were made, the Americans could only elect the first time, but after that they would be appointed. After some troubles in New York and Philadelphia, plus the antics of wandering priests, he convinced the congregation that they needed a bishop. Carroll was elected almost unanimously, and on November 6, 1789, by the pontifical brief, Baltimore was named the first diocese of America with Carroll as the bishop. On August 15, 1790, Carroll was ordained bishop at Lulworth Castle, Dorset, England, by Bishop Charles Walmsley. Carroll was concerned with education, and he pushed for Georgetown College, now Georgetown University, to be created even before he became bishop. In November 1791, the college admitted their first student. Just a little bit after, the French Sulpicians founded St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore. The Sulpicians went on to start a few other schools, including Mount St. Mary's College and Seminary, now Mount St. Mary's University and Seminary, in 1808. Carroll was also approved the founding of Visitation Sisters. In 1809, he encouraged Elizabeth Ann Seton to establish the American Sisters of Charity for the education of girls. In 1804, Carroll was given administration of the Danish West Indies and other nearby islands that were under no ecclesiastical jurisdiction, and then also the Louisiana Territory in 1805. On April 8, 1808, the Diocese of Baltimore was raised to an archdiocese with 4 suffragan sees in Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and Bardstown, Kentucky. Carroll left the choice of Bishop of New York to the Holy See, and himself ordained the bishops he had chosen for the other 3. However, the Holy See's choice for New York, Bishop Richard Luke Konkakin, died in Europe soon after his consecration. Not only was Carroll obliged to continue his care of New York, but also of Philadelphia, where Bishop Michael Egan, in poor health, proved incapable of dealing with a variety of troublemakers. While Boston and Bardstown were in capable hands of John Cheverus and Benedict Flaget, respectively, Carroll was unable to send out the man he had chosen as administrator of Louisiana, William de Bourgh, until 1813. Although Carroll came to appreciate the support of the Congregation of the Propaganda, he and his suffragans attempted to deal directly with the Pope. This effort, as well as that of filling the empty sees of New York and Philadelphia after Egan's death in 1814, was frustrated by the imprisonment of Pius VII and the unsettled condition of the Holy See. Carroll's last years were particularly troubled ones. War with England prevented him from holding the provincial council he had planned. He was forced to complain of foreign interference in the choice of bishops for the orphaned sees, and had to suffer independent-minded Jesuit superiors. At the time of the restoration of the society in 1814, he refused to surrender at once the powers, properties, and parishes the superior demanded. His death after brief illness on December 3, 1815, brought peace for him, but resulted in a universal outpouring of regret from the Church in America. Carroll was never named a saint, but he had a huge influence in the Church before and after the American Revolution, in its liturgy and administration, and in education as well. And there are many schools named after him, including ours. So, I hope you liked that, and I am so excited for next week's video. Bye!